Hello, everybody. Okay, I'm here. Sorry for the delay, folks. We are about 8 minutes late today. I actually did something smart saying I'm going to schedule a live stream because they gave me an option last night when I played with it, when I went to send you a reminder on Twitter. And looks like it's a different way of doing it. And I could not get that started. So I had to kind of go back to an old version of my dashboard on YouTube to go find out where to start my live stream. So sorry about the confusion. Hope I'm Sudha Jamte, and I teach IoT business and autonomous vehicle business at Stanford Continuing Studies, and on my own site, Driverless World School. And I have exciting, classes about AV business and a new class called Business of Autonomous Vehicle Data, which is open for registration for 5 more days. So it's T-5 today. And if you're new to my weekly live stream, I started out maybe 5-6 weeks back saying, hey, we'll talk about autonomous vehicle business. And I picked the first topic, autonomous vehicle data. And then we've been going on with that topic, continuing on when we still have so much more to cover. So for those of you joining me now, thank you. And I love this part of my week. I'm Sudha Jamte, and I'm going to answer all your questions about autonomous vehicle data from a business lens, because that's what I focus on. So, what is autonomous vehicle business in the first place? So, it is easy to assume that the technology to make a car into a self-driving car or a truck into an autonomous truck is what autonomous vehicle business about. Autonomous vehicle business is driven by the technology, what makes the car or the truck or any kind of autonomous vehicle autonomous. But beyond that, there are so many businesses disrupted by that. There are so many new business opportunities that comes with it, and there are so many tech stack options you can build startups that would again go disrupt a bunch of industries. So that is what I mean as autonomous vehicle business. And in fact, I have my this spring semester autonomous vehicle business bootcamp, which is it's called an intensive bootcamp, autonomous vehicle business, an intensive bootcamp coming up in Stanford this weekend on May 18th and 19th. So if you're local, maybe I'll see you there. So I'll be teaching about autonomous vehicle business from a broader landscape perspective and dig deeper into 3 topics that I believe is important to learn autonomous vehicle business. One is you learn what is autonomous vehicle business and then go deeper into autonomous vehicle data, which is what we'll be covering in this live Q&A. Product management, how do you build product in a machine learning world, because the car is running machine learning and deep learning algorithms. Everything you put in the car, when it runs autonomously, it has to work on its own. So it's inference models. And then you have to integrate into multiple tech stacks out there, especially with data. So that's a big product management piece. And then who's going to pay for all this? What is the business model? What are the winning business models? And I focus a lot on data-driven business models. And how do you test and iterate those business models? It's not just saying, I think I'm going to charge some subscription for some mobility service and people are going to pay for it. That's not how you run a business. You actually have to test and iterate and validate and make sure that your business model really works for your business. So those are the 3 components that I will be covering in my typical autonomous vehicle business course. And I also put my past Stanford class archives on Driverless World School as a free course. So if you just want to check it out, that's good. And this weekend, when I have my lectures and some of my speakers, I won't be able to put all of it, but some of it I'm going to bring videos back for the free class archive. Okay, so coming back to today's topic, autonomous vehicle data. So the way I've structured today is I can be interrupted anytime. No question is a bad question. And I hope we will have a fun conversation as you ask questions. And In fact, when you think of asking a question, it's possible somebody out there is already thinking about that question and not asking that. So if you have a question, please ask me. And I've been doing this for, teaching this topic for 3 years, and I'm obsessed about this. Everybody knows me, knows that. So chances are high that I'll be able to answer the question. If not, I'll go find the answer for you. That's my promise. Okay. So let's start with what is autonomous vehicle data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what is autonomous vehicle data as a summary for us to just get to the same starting place to think about your questions. The second thing is, I'm by popular demand, people ping me. This afternoon, I'm going to be speaking at IoT World Santa Clara at 3:20 at the ecosystem stage. And so my topic is IoT, how IoT leads us to autonomous vehicle data. And so I'm going, by popular demand, I'm going to include that content a little bit and tell you what I'm thinking about. And again, if you have questions, if you're not going to be there, this is an awesome opportunity, right? And that primarily is going to focus or lead us towards edge analytics. So I'm going to tell you about autonomous vehicle data. What is autonomous vehicle data? Different kinds of data, and lead to edge analytics and IoT leading us to AVData. That's what I'm going to be talking, unless you interrupt and ask me a question. That's my plan for today. Cool? Okay, let's get started. So what is autonomous vehicle data? So at a very basic level, data could be images, voice, video, just data in terms of numbers, right, pointing to something happening in the car, right? But when you take that one level up, so the kind of data in the car, I look at it as in three different buckets, and I have a habit of putting everything in three buckets, that. So the first thing is, it's very obvious when you say autonomous vehicle data, what comes to mind? Hey Patrick, hi, thank you for joining me. So I'm waiting for your questions. So I'm just talking about what is autonomous vehicle data to get us to a good starting point. So the first bucket is car cognition. What data comes from the sensor fusion. Sensor fusion is the combination of data from various sensors. There's LiDARs in the car, cameras in the car, all kinds of radars, and all the different sensors in the car that helps the car see the road. That space of how the car sees the road is called perception. How that data is all combined is the car cognition data. And that is needed by anybody who gets the car to run autonomously. So when you see a car running autonomously, it is going to have a software stack, and that is going to have a machine learning algorithm or a deep learning algorithm, which has been trained to look at this data that it is getting from the various sensors and make sense of it and make a decision. So the way it is done is the car localizes itself. That means it knows where it is on Earth. And then it collects all this data from sensor data and makes sense of it. That's perception. Then it decides, it's called path planning, where it decides, should I move? Am I within my lane? Should I move? Should I stop? That kind of moving decision, in which direction it's moving. That's the path planning. And then the actual control, which actually transfers this software knowledge into electronics or mechanics to get the car to actually run, to power the brakes, to power the accelerator, and get the car moving. And that is the drive by wire, it's called, where it is actually powering the physical part of the car, the hardware part of the car, to run from the software telling it what to do. And that's how the autonomous vehicle's brain works. In fact, if Charles is here, you should talk to him, because he's actually working on a course about perception in the car. So that data that comes from the sensors that helps make this decision is one bucket of data. Okay, so that is useful only if you're building an autonomous vehicle. So if you're working in NVIDIA or Waymo or Cruise or Drive.ai or any of the startups building this, then it's useful. And when I talk about autonomous vehicles, I am talking about the self-driving car. I actually have a Stanford course called Business of Self-Driving Car. when I say autonomous vehicle business, I'm going past the self-driving car to all other vehicles. So could be autonomous trucks. And recently, California DMV has put out it's in the comment period till May 27th, I believe, has put out a proposed regulation for what they call as small size trucks. It's really not a truck. It's a small vehicle that is like a robot, driving around in our sidewalks, and they call trucks. They are not cars. They are not licensed to run as cars, and they're called small size trucks. And they've said, hey, they can run unmanned, and they can run and in our sidewalks and do stuff. And typically what they do is they do last mile delivery, or what is called last meter delivery. So these trucks do last mile delivery. And there are companies testing out. Hi Richard, hi Charles, thank you for joining me. Thank you, Richard. Yes, I had to cancel my previous scheduled live Q&A and restart this. So sorry for the trouble that you guys had to refresh the browser. So no more scheduling of live stream. Live stream is going to go live hereafter. So I was talking about AVData. The first is the data from the sensor fusion that helps the car cognition. So I'm going to put that aside. So the CADMV, California DMV, has said, hey, small size trucks, which are essentially the smaller robots, like the Kiwi bot that you had taken a video of, Richard, they are allowed to run autonomously, and they're giving them license to run, to test out amongst our roads. And that means the things what we are seeing today is they are doing last mile delivery, which is grocery delivery, which is being tested out by DoorDash, Postmates. In fact, in Mountain View, the Sidewalk, which is a Google Alphabet company, is offering a robot, which is also qualified as one of these mid-sized trucks, to go pick up books from the neighborhood in Mountain View. So if people are not mobile or they forget their books, then they can schedule for this robot to come and pick it up from their house and take it and drop it back in the library. So that last mile delivery is where a whole bunch of this is happening. In fact, in my neighborhood recently, in San Jose, a new company has showed up, and they are doing grocery delivery. We didn't have a grocery delivery or the Kiwi bot doing stuff in my neighborhood. I've seen the Kiwi bot only in Berkeley. So all those are autonomous vehicles of some sort, right? So the second set of data is what I call as data in the car. I gave this list of vehicles as, non-self-driving car vehicles, because they also use the same kind of car cognition. They have sensors all over their bodies. Even the Kiwi bot, though it looks like this big, right? It's like a big box, and it has the same kind of sensors to know where it is going. It stops at the crossing, shares the road with pedestrians. So it has the sensors. All that is still sensor fusion data, which is the first bucket, right? Which leads to cognition of how the car drives. The second piece is the data inside the car. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And a previous week, we covered this data from outside that gets into the car. I'm not going to go over that today. Just for the sake of getting us to the same starting place, I'm just going to tell you what is that number 3. The data outside the car is the V2V communication or V2x communication, where the car communicates with the outside world, or there is mobility data that the city wants, and that could be tapped into and integrated with the existing car data. So there is a specification we spoke about, I think 2 weeks back on Wednesday. Maybe last to last week we did a Tuesday, last to last week. We spoke about this mobility MDS, mobility data specification, which is the standard that cities set and say, hey, give me data. And so a lot of cities have this data. Barcelona has this, it's called Centilio, or they call it Open OS. I don't know why they call it OS instead of open data. Maybe that word is taken. But a lot of cities have this open data that they collect from various vehicle providers. Could be bicycles, could be this robots like Neuro and KiwiBot that are driving around. Um, I believe there is one called Ocado that is in UK doing a similar sidewalk delivery robot that David Kerrigan was telling me about. David Kerrigan, you have to check out his books. He has a bunch of books on IoT and AI and life as a passenger about autonomous vehicle. And he brings me the latest from Europe. And he was saying there's this concept of wheelies, where when you start driving the vehicles autonomously and doing the delivery, then when the vehicle is reaching the customer, hey, why not sell them some stuff? So the stores are not just doing delivery, but they're giving you an option of buying from this truck that shows up. So it's like the stores are on wheels, and he calls that wheelies, very British. So that's the third piece is data from outside in that is coming into the car. So the thing that I'm going to focus is the second bucket, which is data inside the car. So what is data inside the car? There's AI in the car, and so we'll talk a little bit about that today. I've already started talking on this topic, but unless you interrupt me, I'm going to keep going on this AI inside the car. And the other thing is there could be sensors inside the car itself. That is my topic of IoT leading to autonomous vehicle data, which is sensors in lining up the inside of the car, which obviously is producing more data in real time, and it is stored on the edge. That's what we're going to focus on. So do you have any questions, or should I go into the data from AI in the car and edge analytics inside the car? No? Okay. Hi, Usha. Thank you for joining us. So, Usha, I was just giving a summary of the different kind of data in the car, and I was asking if people have questions. Otherwise, today I am going to thank you, Usha. I'm sorry, everybody has to refresh their browsers. Maybe somebody should go tweet and tell the world, because I had scheduled the live stream and it didn't work for some technical difficulty. So I had to start a new live stream. So maybe somebody should tweet and tell people that they need to refresh and come back. I'll appreciate that. So sorry for the trouble. So I was talking about three different kind of data in the car: the data from outside the car that comes in, and thank you, Patrick, and the data that is the car cognition data, and I'm focusing on the data from the AI in the car and the sensors inside the vehicle that is going to produce data similar to the sensor fusion of the outside sensors that is going to lead to edge analytics. So I'm going to focus on those two topics and keep talking unless you interrupt me with beautiful questions. And no question is a bad question, and thank you for joining me. Okay. So AI in the car. So at a minimum, the AI in the car is the machine learning or deep learning algorithm that drives the car. So I'm not going to talk about that. That's definitely an important one. What I'm talking about is beyond the companies who are producing or developing the self-driving car cognition technology, what are the other AI in the car that could come from an OEM, which is the car makers, or it could come from somebody like you who is working in a business or a startup and wants to get into the car and tap into the experience of the user, or wants to create a new experience or a new business model out of that. So that is what I'm talking about AI in the car. So the if you go up to the application layer, the way AI you would see AI in the car could be augmented reality or virtual reality or voice in the car. And voice in the car is available in Mercedes as a native um, interface that comes from Mercedes. So like you can say, okay, Google, you can actually, okay, I do this every day. It's going to talk to me. I need to lie low. Okay, it's gone. So like you have the invocation words and you call Alexa or Google, you have to do hey Mercedes and then talk to it. And that's a native voice interface API that Mercedes has built out and is launching in their cars. Otherwise, you can have an integration of Alexa, as in you have them in the BMW and the Volkswagen cars, and same with Google. You have Google Home. You have in a bunch of cars, and Amazon has promised an Amazon Auto, Alexa Auto, as it's called, and a lot of things of integrating Alexa in the car. It was announced. I have not seen it, so if somebody has information on the latest on that, I would like to go check it out. But they said they are going to not just give you the same interface where you can ask questions, but you can ask questions, and as they are interfacing, you've heard this news that they're collecting all the data stream when we are interfacing with Alexa, and they said they would actually look at the data to understand the emotions of the person, saying, hey, we'll serve you better, to have a conversational AI to serve you better. But in reality, they are going to be collecting all the data, parsing it, developing an AI algorithm that would actually understand our emotions. So it's kind of scary stuff from a privacy boundary perspective. But the voice is going to be the interface in the car. Think of this car being autonomous. So today you get an app, and then you call for a lift. So you could do the same thing in summoning the app. But how do you communicate while you're driving? The car has to communicate with you. Suppose you want to pull over, you want to change. You cannot always have this app. Today the interface is the phone that talks to the brain of the car, and the entire tech stack is not sitting in the car. I believe the entire tech stack is going to be completely native in the car out into the future. And for those of you who know me, I have this 2030 driverless world book, and 2030 is my estimate, my prediction of when this will kind of be mainstream. It's not like 100% all driverless cars, but it's mainstream that it won't be a big deal for us to kind of get too wowed by it. So we are going to have voice in the car as the interface, and that is an AI that I'm talking about. And all that is data. So when you're talking to the car and you're saying, hey, pull over, or I said I want to go here, but I want to do a detour, I want to stop by at the Starbucks, all that is going to be collected. And we had spoken earlier when I introduced this whole live stream, like maybe a month back or 5-6 weeks back, about 3 digital twins in the car. And it's collecting data about how the car in the car parts are performing in one, the experience of my profile setting in another, and behavioral data as another. And the question is out in the open as to who owns this. Today it looks like the OEM is the only one, the car maker has access to the car and they own everything. But whoever sets up a digital identity is going to be owning that. Okay, so voice in the car is one AI, and we can take that to many dimensions. If that's a topic of interest, we can go further. As I said, I'm not interested in just giving you a list of data in the car. I want to go into what is the business model, how does that change our life, what kind of applications and use cases can you create to change and make our life better. Otherwise, what's the point of adopting new technology for the sake of technology? So voice in the car is going to become a critical interface. Today I don't know of anybody who's giving an open API as a voice in the car for us to go build off applications on top of that. So we could have many applications, not just one from the OEM saying, hey, Mercedes or whatever brand, and talk to the car, but it is going to be a lot more products that we can build, my students can build on top of it, that will offer services. Okay, so that is one. So other than that, there is AR and VR in the car. I believe I've mentioned this about augmented reality, the AI available from augmented reality in Mercedes. I try to be very brand agnostic, and suddenly today I'm making my second reference to Mercedes in 5 minutes. So that's because I did this case study with Mercedes, and Richard here was one of the writers. He was our editor actually. So you should check that out. If you want, you can chat with Richard about it. It's more a digital transformation case study that we did, but the product that we were tracking was this thing called Ask Mercedes. And the Richard, maybe you should tell people where they can get access to the case study if they want to take a look. And if somebody out here doesn't want to go get this from Amazon, ping me and I'll get you a copy. not going to put that copy out for free because Richard and um, Stephanie, who's the other person who worked with me on that, my student, they have worked very hard, so I didn't put it out for free. But if somebody wants a copy, I'm happy to give that. Yeah. So it's on Amazon. Thank you, Richard. So if you say Ask Mercedes on Amazon Kindle, you will find a downloadable version that you can check it out. And we have the case study and the solution piece like you have in a typical HBase case study format. So the Ask Mercedes is an app. It's a map app on the phone, and I believe it's in the E series in Mercedes and the E class, and they also have were adding it to more classes of Mercedes vehicles, which is basically you might not even think of it as AI. That's the beauty of AI. They took the user manual, which is this big fat book that none of us actually use efficiently, which has been sitting in the car for ages, and they made it into an augmented reality app. And then they basically said, hey, download this Ask Mercedes app and we'll tell you whatever you want about using the car. And so what it is when you point the phone at the app, what it does is it actually is calling an augmented reality inference model, piece of software that is sitting in the car. Nobody tells you about this because they don't want to tell you. They just want you to experience and know how the car works. So if I get into a new Mercedes and I want to understand how the Bluetooth works, or what is this part, what does this do, I don't even need to name it and go click it and do anything. Instead, I can point the app and it will give me this augmented reality interface of what the part is, and from there it will open up a digital manual. There's a voice interface, there's a video interface, and it starts talking about it. And they build that using augmented reality, which means it's like the Pokemon. When you point at an airport or your library, one of the Pokemons jump at you, this is going to be one of these Mercedes car parts that's going to jump at you, and it talks to you and tells you about what it does. I think it's very cool. But the augmented reality part in there is that they have used computer vision, take pictures of all the parts, and then build this AR interface. So when you point, it pops up at you instead of a 2D image, and you can interact with it. Right? Why is this a big deal? Why am I talking about this again? Because that AR was built by a company called Vuforia, 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 and they build this kind of interfaces, and they have this augmented reality model that they have built, and an inference AI model, and they put it in the car. And then now when you're actually pointing at different parts in the car, they actually are collecting data. So they know whether you are, so obviously there is AI in the car, there is data about the different images, just like the cognition model. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about us as users. When we interact with this AI, what happens? What data does it collect? One could argue that this is all going to improve that model, and they can learn and better the model for us. That's a sane argument. But what you're actually telling them, which is also good in my perspective, from a privacy standpoint, but it actually tells them, hey, people are pointing a lot at the Bluetooth and they have questions about it, and people are not even caring to look at something else that they've offered in the car. Cup holder, I'm guessing, some part, right? So they actually know which part is of importance to people, and they can decide to not drop that feature or include that feature or price that feature accordingly if that's an add-on, that kind of thing. But they get usage behavior information about the preference of the user just by their usage. That's a very important piece. So everything that's in the car is going to inform that when they're collecting as data, is going to inform what the user behavior is. But there's a funny thing. I was actually at IIC, the Internet Industrial Consortium, had a closed room meeting, a workshop about OTA, over the air updates this weekend. And I just remembered then that when we are talking about OTA, Mercedes does not have an OTA to update this AR algorithm. So what it is a business decision. That's why I'm saying that here, because it's a business decision whether when you put a piece of AR in the car or any kind of AI in the car and you start collecting data around it, getting that data out to improve that model, or getting the data out so that you can act on it and create a business model, and maybe somebody appreciates this data and you can create some value from it. To get to do that, there is the cost to extract that data, to send that data. So in Mercedes case, all the Mercedes have a SIM card, and so for emergency updates or map updates, they must be doing that without even telling us, right? But when they have to pull this data and send it, it's going to be a bandwidth cost. And all the older models that did not have the SIM card, they have to do it when it goes to the dealer network. And every dealer doesn't know that, is not trained about extracting data. So they actually put a USB in the car and extract this data, and then they transfer this data and give it to Mercedes. So as a business person who's managing data, trying to build business model around it, think about it from the cost of transferring this data, offsetting with the value that you will create for the customer, following the compliance of GDPR and everything of this data. If the data is going to get into a stick, into a USB stick, and is going to be passed around, how do you make sure that it is safe, that there's not a copy lying around anywhere? I mean, right now, I believe Mercedes does that with your permission only when you go to the dealer, and they're not throwing, USB sticks around. But if you say that's going to be a step process like that, then you have to train the dealer. You have to make sure that data is safe, and that becomes a liability for you. But beyond that, the value is that you get to know customer behavior, and it needs to get into your product development cycle or in your marketing pricing cycle, somewhere in your process. So that is where it becomes more challenging. So data in the car is not just about the data insights and analytics, which everybody thinks it is, which it is also, right? But all the other things you have to do around it. So the other thing could be VR in the car, which is a completely virtual reality environment. So augmented reality, what happens is you actually see what you are, where you are, like the Pokemon environment, and on top of that you get like a Pokemon added, right? So in the Mercedes case, you're seeing the car and you're seeing the inside of the car, and then you see a specific part and you see other experience of the voice telling you about that part, adding up on it. Virtual reality is creating a whole new environment which doesn't exist in the car. And you would wonder, I am supposed to be driving. You're not driving. We're talking about autonomous vehicles, right? And if you get the virtual reality, that could actually take you to a whole new place. It could give you entertainment. It could give you news. It could give you some kind of infotainment, right? All that could be happening. Does anybody have a question for me? You've been very quiet today. I see a lot of you here, but you're all very quiet. So I don't know if it's a good thing. Is that a good thing? Okay. So the thing about virtual reality is that it is going to create that experience, right? Thank you, Usha. So if you have a question about this data in the car from the AI in the car, that's good. Or if you have any other question related to this whole AV business topic and AV data in general, it's okay. It doesn't have to go with this AI in the car topic. I'm happy to answer that. So go for it, okay? So the one thing is, I made myself too comfortable today. So the AR, the VR in the car is creating this experience that is in the car. So I'm speechless to see how passionate you are with AV data. Thank you, Usha. I should not make people speechless when I do a live Q&A and I need questions so that I can answer. So the VR in the car is going to create that experience, right? So what does that mean? So it could be in entertainment. So Charles and I were chatting about this on Twitter. Nissan has come up with something what they call as I2V, which is they have virtual reality in the car, but while you're driving, that experience doesn't exist. It's not like the infotainment where they say, hey, I want to go into this virtual world and I want to play this game, or I want to be entertained, right? Instead, as you're driving, what they do is they mix with data from outside, and the way they bring that data to you is an design experience that they've created. And Charles is a service design expert, and so he was very excited about this topic when we were chatting. And what they're calling it as I to V, which is invisible to visible. I mean, the whole V2x is a lot of buzzwords. So V2V is cars communicating with each other. V2I is talking to the infrastructure, to the dealer, which is all sending data, by the way, right? To the road, to see how the road is, whether there's black ice in the road. That's my favorite example. Things like that, right? Or talking to the parking garage, things like that. So now this takes, I'm very fascinated by this, because it is not data again as data, right? You never think of it as data. You're driving around and it says, hey, as you're crossing some area, it knows your geolocation and it finds data about that environment, and then it gives you that, right? So it says what is nearby. It shows you the inside of a mall, maybe when you're getting, so maybe you're going inside and you have to park, maybe you need to be dropped off, no parking, right? Because this is an autonomous vehicle, and you want to be parked at a certain area, and you see what are the shops nearby. It can actually tell you that, because it has a map of the day, of real-time map. But instead of giving you a map for you to see, am I near Nordstam, that's where I want to go, now it can actually suddenly it was invisible because there was no map, nothing, and now you're entering the mall, it can pop up and show you that environment like a virtual reality. So you feel like you're in the mall, you're looking into the mall, and you can say, hey, I want to go here, no, I don't want to go here. You have to communicate. There are two pieces here. One, they're giving you the virtual reality experience, which is awesome experience, I want to experience that, which is all data. Again, they will be looking at, I don't think the PR articles say this, but I'm guessing they're going to see which you interact with, what is helpful for you and not, so that they can tweak the experience, but they also learn your behavior and preferences from that data. But again, you have to interact with the car, with using voice, and say, hey, I want to continue on, I don't want to go here, type of thing. So that might be baked into the experience of the app that they're giving. But think of it, if you're one of my students, if you're listening in saying, hey, what is this AVData thing? And why is it relevant to business? I have this course called Business of Autonomous Vehicle Data on Driverless World School. It's my paid course, my first paid course. And you can come in. It's a 4-week course, a live lecture in a class setting with me, and I'll be using Zoom. And we can learn about autonomous vehicle data. And I would have 5 hours of content each week about the key topics that you need to learn, so that we can have a fun conversation, right? So different people might come from different background. And so your commitment is 1 hour per week live session. And if you miss it, obviously you'll get a recorded version, but I would recommend, to sign up only if you feel you can give 1 hour a week. That is important. But rest of it, you can watch it on demand and engage. But my focus is going to be on building business models. It's not just like blah, 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 here's what car data is about, but how do you make sense of that? How do you create inclusive mobility using that data? How do you create business model if you're creating a tech stack inside a car? So that kind of stuff. So that is the business of autonomous vehicle data. In fact, I have a T-5 today. In 5 days on Monday, this will finish, and I'm not going to extend that data again. So if that's of interest, maybe you can talk to Usha, because Usha has signed up for that class in among the people who are here. So why am I talking about that? Because you could be creating a business using this data, using the augmented reality, using the virtual reality, the voice, everything in the car. Think about it. So today, when my students come up with, hey, I could build a business this way, the first challenge is, how do I get that data? Because the data is not publicly available. So you'll have to figure out, like the insurance companies provide a little dongle, Progressive has that, and they say, hey, put this in the car, and we can find out how the car is driving, and we'll get the data. They never mention the word data. They basically say, put this in the car, we'll find out how you're driving, and we'll give you better rates by by watching your driving behavior, will reward you with a better rate on a monthly basis. That means they're watching your data to see what kind of driver you are, putting you in the right risk profile, and adapting your insurance, car insurance today, right? But the point I wanted to make is they're actually getting the data with your permission by giving you the dongle that you insert in the car. So you'll have to think about, if you come up with a new application or a solution that would add inclusive mobility, that would add tap onto voice or AR or VR, something AI in the car, then how do you get that data, right? That's a challenge. We can talk about it if you have a application that you're thinking about. But the real important thing is, if you get access to the data, who are you solving the problem for? Yes, training data, Usha. Yes. So who are you solving the problem for, and how? What is your business model? How are you going to deploy this? I mean, I always tell my students, when you say business model is not revenue model. It is not just, hey, here's a subscription revenue and I'm going to make money. You could say that. If I'm an investor, I don't need to believe it. So you have to think through and iterate and test your business model, which would be strategic for your business. It could be a revenue model, which is a subscription based model. But whether it is subscription, whether it is a installation fee, whether, what it is, does not matter, right? In what format the money would come, in what frequency it would come, is not important. Who's paying you? Why are they paying you? What is the value? How do you test what the assumptions are? And you build it such that it is defensible, and somebody else says, oh, I didn't think of that, now let me do that, and then the next person comes in, or a big company comes in and they can do that, is not sustainable. So business model should be thinking through that, and it invariably involves the behavior of the customer who has to adopt it. So you need to account for that. What is the value? And then you should test it using data as to how are the customers responding, what were the assumptions you made, and whether they are actually behaving the way you expected them to, or they're doing something else. So that's the business model. So with VR or AR or AI in any form, right? You can think about businesses that you can create, or your existing business could actually tap into that. Can you think of an existing business from what I've told you today about AR, VR, voice in the car? Can you think of an existing industry that's going to be disrupted? Quiz time. I'm a teacher, guys. If you don't ask me questions, I'll ask you questions. I'll even give you a quiz. So what industry is going to be impacted by this data in the car? The one I'm talking about, which is coming from the AI, VR example. Existing business. Yes, Usha. It could be an existing business or in mass industry. Supermarkets. Patrick has come with supermarkets. Elaborate more. When you say supermarkets, what do you mean? And Usha, you asked me a question whether it's an existing business, so I'm expecting you to come back with an existing business. So I believe, Patrick, when you say supermarkets, you're talking about retail industry. So yes. So in this example, yeah, Patrick has come with an answer, because I can view supermarket products in AR, VR and have it delivered to my house when I'm arriving. Yes, that's fantastic. Groceries, yes. Patrick is on a roll here. So we were talking about autonomous vehicle is not just a small the self-driving car. Oh my God, a lot of answers. I need to stop and answer that. Supply chain. Usha has come up. So Patrick says supermarkets, groceries. Usha says supply chain, insurance. And Patrick says I won't need a grocery store anymore. Yeah. So think of that. That good suggestions. Thank you, guys. So insurance, definitely. We talked a little bit about the dongle, Usha. Supply chain is an amazing thing. People don't naturally think about it tied to autonomous vehicles. So I want to talk about the supermarket retail example that Patrick is talking about, and then I will come to the supply chain because it's kind of tied to that. So one is there's a lot of grocery deliveries that is being done by these bots, by the little the sidewalk bots, and all that is changing and disrupting the grocery business. And when you're when Patrick, when you said supermarkets, what I was thinking was, when the example I gave you with Nissan, right? The I to V, the invisible to visible, and I'm driving around, and or I'm riding in this autonomous vehicle, getting into the car, into the mall, in the parking area, and I can see what is the map of the mall, and that would affect where I want to go. So if my intention is going to go to IKEA or Nordstrom, and IKEA is a big store by itself, so that's not a good example. So in a mall setting, if I want to go to Claire's, which is like a hair product accessory store, and I want to go to Claire's, and I don't know if Claire's is nearby, and I don't want to get down there. So that is going to inform retailers of my interest of where I want to go. And I would tell my car saying, hey, take me to where Claire's is. And the Nissan could actually go charge the entire mall with this data, saying, I'm going to bring you customers with the intent to come to your store. And the beauty of it from a business perspective is, if you tap into an existing business problem, there's already budget sitting for it. So the malls, the shops in the malls already have their money to bring traffic to their shops, the acquisition cost. And so they could actually fund Nissan right from that, and for the data that Nissan would give them. And to Patrick's point, we don't need stores anymore if everything is going to be mobile. I don't believe that we'll go to a world where there are no stores. So at least in transition, we are going to be able to, the retailers are going to want us to come, and for certain things that would make sense that we would buy, maybe consumables like, dishwasher liquid and stuff, I don't need to be shopping, they could come from grocery. So the grocery business definitely is disrupted. I want to get back to Usha's point on supply chain, but I see a lot of comments here and it scrolls away if I don't read it, so I'm going to go see what other people are saying. So Charles is saying fossil fuel charging stations filling up, depending on whether AVs are running in hybrid or electric. That's a very good thing, because all those businesses have to grow. And in fact, with the charging station, there could also be this whole concept of V2G. This is vehicle to grid, which disrupts the energy industry, because the car can charge itself and then carry the charge around and go to a place where there is a blackout. And or it can, if there are too many electric cars in a neighborhood, if imagine they all start charging, what will be the demand response on the grid? So maybe they could have these vehicles that would go discharge and bring charge, right? So this whole bunch of businesses that are cropping up with just around the V2G. So supply chain is a good one, Vusha. Patrick is saying. Patrick says, I meant more in I can see the milk cartons. I touch skimmels. Oh, toothpaste. Oh, bag of apples. That's so awesome. So Patrick is going back to the invisible to visible Nissan example, saying you can actually look into a store without getting into the store and see the products and then decide. That takes it to a next level altogether. Imagine, I mean, we're talking so much data today. So I have about 15 minutes, I believe. So I just want to be cognizant of time, but I love the conversations that's cropping up. So we are talking about data in the car and the VR, AR, and how you'd interact with that data. And now Nissan has taken it to the next level by connecting outside data from the mall, which I was thinking purely from a map perspective. And Patrick is taking it to the next level and say, what if I don't get into the store? It's like window shopping. It's like the autonomous version of window shopping is what Patrick is proposing. So I don't go to the store inside. I don't go inside the store. I'm just looking from outside, and I'm able to see what is lined up in the shelf. Maybe AR, VR will help me touch that product and see how are the apples, how is the skim milk. Maybe I won't touch skim milk, but you can touch it and you can experience it and want to go to that shop or want to buy that product. and maybe I don't even need to go to the store, and I can tap somewhere in that augmented experience. So from a business perspective, suddenly you can see the data not just sitting with one car company or one business offering the AR VR experience, but there's a flow of data. I mean, this is so complex, but it's amazing. You have to have the inventory of the store in real time, tied to the geolocation of the user, ta- showing up in the car in the augmented reality interface. So there's a lot of partnerships and flow of data across vendors. So that is an awesome business model, which is a data driven business model. Whoever who is giving this interface to the user, who's going to get this data from the user, is actually going to be able to charge a fee for it, because they're adding value to the customer. So that's fantastic. I'm going to pick up this particular thread and talk again, build on it later, but I love it. And Usha mentioned supply chain. Usha's thanking Patrick. She said she was talking about supply chain in supermarkets. Okay, and they're both having a discussion. That's fantastic. I love it when my students start talking to each other and I'm not needed. So so Patrick is talking about, how it would create an upside down reality, like a Dr. Searle's intention economy. So definitely, Patrick, you've given enough feed for thought. So, window shopping, yes, we'll talk about it. Thank you, Usha, for joining. It's okay if you have to go. We can come back and look at this, and I'm going to see you online in the class also. I appreciate that. So think about this. We've been talking about AR, VR as one kind of AI in the car. And when it is connecting to other businesses, first of all, it is giving the experience and it is collecting data about the preference of the user with their permission, hopefully. And by Visha. So other than that, it is actually connecting to all bunch of retailers. And while Usha is not here, I'm going to be talking about her supermarket use case, the supply chain use case. The supply chain, for me, I was thinking about it differently. So first I want to go back to what Usha was alluding to, which is if you are able to, in real time, show your preference of what you like, even before I enter the store. So it is actually going to help manage inventory and what is on demand in real time. And so you could have, the entire supply chain could be out in the cloud, and they could take this data of this user likes apples, and they're driving in this autonomous vehicles and they're going to buy apples. And we have apples in the store. If the user is going to buy apples, or maybe 10 users are buying apples, then the inventory is going to go down. You can run a prediction, and based on that, it can go back to the supply chain to where the source of apples are coming from, another wholesaler to another farm, and say, we need more of this kind of apples. We need more Granny Smith apples. I'm not a fan of Granny Smith apples, by the way, but I'm just giving that as an example. So you could actually manage there could be a ripple effect into your entire supply chain because of this autonomous vehicle VR experience, giving access to the customer to tell them what they want. And from an e-commerce perspective, typically what happens is we have this thing called a needs triangle, where the customer is interested in something they are not yet going to buy, but the need has been, they got excited about that. They feel like, oh my god, yummy apples, maybe I should eat apples, and have a memory of some nice apple crumble that I've had in the past. And then it comes back to, okay, now I need apple. Should I get a Granny Smith? Should I get something else? And do I need it now? Type of thing. So it comes back to the next step. They go deeper into the funnel, and then they go into actually buying it. So the second stage when they are in the funnel is where they are doing comparison shopping. They're looking at the price and they're kind of ready to buy. So when we see in e-commerce sites, they say 20 other people are looking at the same ticket, or so many people are shopping at the same time, or this is this 5 days left for this, or 5 hours left for this. Those kind of signals actually get people to decide, okay, am I serious about buying it? Let me buy. And they make them go down the funnel. So it's possible that it is creating that data, and then it creates a ripple effect. First of all, it could be that it moves customers through the funnel while they are riding autonomously, speeding up the purchase cycle. And then there's a ripple effect on the supply chain. The other aspect of supply chain that I was thinking about is based on edge analytics. So when food is delivered, grocery is delivered, all that, today there are sensors inside the vehicles which are tracking whether the temperatures are set right, and whether things are, there's no bacteria forming because the vehicle lost power for a little bit, and checks whether everything is clean and safe before it arrives at grocery. And that is called the food chain. So when she said supply chain, I was thinking about medicine transportation like that, food transportation like that, done using vehicles or autonomous drones, and they have padded sensors, and there they have a lot of edge analytics, which is the data that they've collected from all the sensors, which says what the temperature should be and whether it is maintained like that and on a time series. And then there's some analytics on, hey, it doesn't matter if it was down for 5 minutes or at the start of the process because it was cold, but as it came closer to the grocery after 3 hours, after it came closer to the retailer, even if it lasts 5 minutes, the temperature went down a certain threshold, and an alert need to be made, or a prediction need to be made of how many of these boxes are going to be rot and what needs for inspection. So there's a student of mine who's working with the USDA to actually look at food delivery using supply chain. There's another student who's building an entire blockchain solution for medicine delivery from Asia to Africa. And so that is what I was thinking as a supply chain, which also is autonomous, could be done autonomous vehicles. Today it's more, connected vehicles, which will become autonomous in the future, but they have sensors and they're tracking for real time. And Usha's point was, from the experience we were talking, the ripple effect on the supply chain, which is a brilliant idea. And the other thing is the using edge analytics. So I want to pause there again, and we are getting to the end of our hour. So we have about 3 minutes. And so I wanted to ask you, do you have any more questions or comments? So I believe people got excited about the I2V I2V topic. I should write a blog post about that. And Patrick, I'm going to follow up offline because you have brilliant ideas on that. But we should talk more on that. So I hope today's conversation helped you to get an appreciation of the data in the car from the AI in the car. So the AR, VR, and the voice. And we didn't go deeper into the ripple effect from the voice in the car. And we will do that another week if that's of interest to you. And I love it that you all communicate and talk to me. Go back to Driverless World School and check out the free course archive that I put, and give me feedback and tell me what you like and what you'd like to continue. We are having this live conversation, and I like Usha talking to Patrick across the globe. Thank you, Richard. I'm glad this is useful. So I wanted to see whether I should create some kind of online community. I have my students. Thank you, Patrick. So I have a newsletter for my students that I send out, all the students who have learned from me over the last 3 years. But I feel like I'm having a one-way conversation when I send a newsletter. I'm sharing articles and video pieces and stuff, from content pieces and stuff, analysis on a weekly basis. I'm trying to keep it to a weekly cadence. But it would be awesome like this if you could talk to me or you could talk amongst yourself. So I'm thinking I could do a Slack channel if that's of interest. Yeah, yeah, Patrick read my mind. Slack channel or Twitter. How would I do that on Twitter? It's like a tweet chat. I want people to be able to talk to each other and communicate with each other. Sometimes when I hear somebody wanting to do something, I always think, oh, I have this other student who was doing this, or other student who's hiring for this, and they moved to a new job. In fact, I have a student, Carolina, who was my student in my first Business of Self-Driving course a couple years back. and she has moved jobs into autonomous vehicle space at Rightcell, and she's coming back to talk to my class as one of the guest speakers about mobility platform this weekend at Stanford. So I love it when such things happen, and Slack is an option. Maybe I'll tweet and get your feedback if that's interesting. But I don't want it to become a closed room that other people don't know about. But at the same time, I don't want it to be too noisy in a public social media. I want it to be open, but not too noisy and distracting for other people who are not interested in some kind of want to find the medium. Other than that, I'm going to be at IoT World this afternoon. So if you're there, say hello. And I will come back. Of course, I will be doing some periscopes and tweeting from there. So talk to me and ask questions. If you're not there, I will still ask your questions on your behalf at the panels. So Charles says, making use of AI in the car, how will it benefit the OEMs? Because I'm assuming the AI in the car might be from an internet company like Amazon, Google. I'm looking at revenue for OEMs. So Charles' question is, AR, VR in the car, voice in the car looks like it's coming from a third party, and it's not from the car makers, OEMs. And the augmented reality, the AR, Ask Mercedes example is from Mercedes. So it could be, nothing is going to get into the car if the OEM doesn't allow it. So the OEM might be making money of that. The Nissan example of I2E is from Nissan. So I do believe, by Patrick. So I'm going to wrap up here. So I do believe that the OEM can make money by allowing a third party as a tier one supplier, and there could be money, or they could develop that themselves. I do believe they're not going to be developing everything, so there's going to be a whole ecosystem, but today the OEM decides who gets into the car. So that is going to be a battle of who owns the digital identity of the customer, because that is the person who can add an API platform, but that is out into the future. But it might not be the OEM if the OEM misses the boat. And so it's a very good point. But OEM today has power to develop that in-house, or have a tier one supplier who would be providing the AR platform of some kind, or come up with their own applications as they change. It changes the experience inside the car. So they should own it. They should care enough about it to not let a third party just do whatever, because that will change the experience of the car. So with that, I'm going to wrap up, and hope you'll check out the business of self-driving car on Driverless World. And if that's not for you, please go tell your friends. I want to help people to go use AVData to drive business model for their businesses, for their companies, or pivot into this space. And I will see you next week on Wednesday. We're going to stick to this 9 o'clock, and I won't do a scheduling ahead of time, so I'll start promptly at 9. So thank you, everybody. See you, and thank you for joining me. Bye.